potentially a little bit counterproductive for you. And maybe you've just moved a little bit on some of those things, which is great.
Yeah. I'm a lot more positive than I was a year ago. So which is weird, despite everything going on outside the four walls here.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Okay, so look, you've got, I think this is your 5th session and then there's one other session. Is that your understanding of where we're at?
I think so. I'd have to double check my notes. That sounds right. Yeah,
I think that's right. So, first of all, in terms of timing, what makes most sense for you with these 2 sessions? I mean, it's also not impossible that we could approach Gina for some more sessions. But in terms of spacing, what are you kind of thinking would be most useful?
I was thinking like today, obviously, and then sometimes sort of in March when it's a bit closer to I'm hoping by March one way or another things will be clearer. Sure. I know it won't be definitive, but sure. If I'm having to deal with it not happening this year and quite having to work out how to deal with that, or otherwise, hopefully on a more positive note, with a bit more surety as to, well, actually, in a month's time, you should be aiming to do X, Y, and Z because the announcement will have been made and that will be that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes complete sense. All right then. So then, given that this will be the session that carries us through, if you like, these next few months, how would you like to use your time today?
I think it's maybe going over a little bit of old ground. I don't think I need to necessarily identify the changes, but I guess we actually, when I look back, we've talked about and covered a lot of stuff over the last, 9-10 months, but trying to remind myself of everything and reinforce it and things, I guess, to kind of keep replaying in my head as I go through everything so I don't, if things not get the better of me, but everything gets busy and so on and so forth. Just sort of, I don't know if the right tactic is to have those kind of pointers where you look up and say, remember to do this, remember to do that.
I think
there's sort of strategies for the next 3 months, I guess.
Yeah.
And bringing the best out.
Okay, sounds good. So why don't we think about some sort of bigger categories within that we might want to address?
Yeah.
You've already mentioned one of them is about how to manage your time. And I think what you really mean by that is how to prioritize the tasks that lie on your to-do list in a cogent way. So that's one thing that we could address. It seems to me there's a piece around how do you continue to build and maintain your networks, which we can cover. Then there's a piece about, the shrug, which is something we've spent a lot of time talking about, your demeanor, the way that you interact. And you've done loads of work on that. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's been picked up on because you've had lots of insights during the sessions and probably after the sessions too. So we could that's a bit of revision, just to remind us.
Yeah.
Your default position can be to come across as slightly X, and therefore we need to just kind of remind ourselves of that, and keep you demonstrating those new behaviours which are reaping benefits for you quite clearly.
Yeah.
So those are 3 areas. If you are interviewed, and even if you're not, but if you're asked informally, this idea of a plan for the first 100 days of your partnership is really important. Yeah. That needs to be something that is clear in your mind actually about how you're going to build this practice, what your priorities are going to be, what are the new things that you'll need to start doing that you're not doing now, and so on. So we could spend some time on that as well. I'm just going to grab my notebook. Just hang on one second.
Sure.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So we said to-do list, and prioritizing First 100 days, demeanor. Was there one more? I can't remember. Did you list first 100 days, demeanor? Connections and maintaining new connections. Okay. Where do you want to start?
I'm not sure. Which is, I don't know if any lead into the other. So I'm just trying to think about whether, I feel like the 100 days in the network building is somewhat related. Whereas the other two are perhaps more disparate. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, let's deal with the easy one, which is the work we've already done. This is like, when you do exam prep, let's just revise what we learned in our last lesson. So what are the main messages that you have received from me about, your interaction style, your demeanor?
I think not to be rude, but it's to make sure people don't think you don't give a shit. It's
exactly.
And to make sure, and I've been, trying to be front foot forward in calls and group calls and, positive in responding and, sort of not letting things lie, where they don't need to. And, that sort of whole piece where I think maybe previously I would have sort of taken a step back for too long and been too sort of late, and people sort of had to keep prompting me to do things rather than, or felt that they did and got that impression. I feel like it's Scatton's very big on sort of responsiveness and I think especially with the sort of more senior people that can be, that can then lead them to assume you're not fully engaged or not sort of concerned with it.
I mean, you had a sort of, I don't quite what the word is, you had a sort of image problem, which was that people thought you were sort of, I think this is the right word, diffident, that you were not engaged and perhaps you didn't always care. And nothing could be further from the truth, actually. It was quite that it was more that you cared so much and were so concerned and didn't, for whatever reason, and we've talked a lot, haven't we, about the reasons why this might be, but you didn't feel like you had a space at the table.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like your voice was as important as other people's. And that would sometimes come across to other people as you being 1 foot out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. And that's what was so unfortunate for you, which is why I was so delighted to hear that this had happened, because there are some people that really don't give a shit, and they don't deserve to get partnership, but you do. You really do. So it's remembering things like posture. It's remembering things like using your hands, moving a little bit more, remembering to come across as dynamic, using assertive verbal cues such as, look, this is the way I see things, or from my perspective, here's what I'd like to add. So being the first person to speak at a meeting occasionally, not always, but occasionally. So it's all of those things. You're quite measured in the way you speak. It almost feels like what you say is being filtered quite carefully. And probably it is, because actually your experiences, over your lifespan have led you to probably conclude that you should filter quite carefully what you say. But it can sometimes come across that, that you lack that passion, that sort of, do you remember I sent you those list of words that you can interject into your conversation? It can sometimes feel a bit like you're a machine, or you're slightly automated. And again, nothing could be further from the truth, because you're very passionate about what you do. So it's about getting that across in a way that people will notice. And the other thing about lawyers like you and your business is that actually at times you do have to work a bit like a machine, because there's so much to do.
Yeah.
And you almost have to go into machine mode. And it's about consciously